Good afternoon and welcome to our What's Buzzing at Georgia Tech webinar series. We're so excited to have you with us here today for our last webinar of the spring semester. Thank you for just tuning in, your engagement all throughout the year. We really appreciate it. We hope that you gain some knowledge and some gems and just any little thing that can help your student be successful. That's pretty much the purpose of our webinars, and we'll just continue to have them going into next academic year. But today, we are joined by our AVP and Dean of Students, John Stein, who's just going to talk about a few things where we are in the semester as we wind down. Every semester has this little story within itself and roadmap that you kind of have to go through as a student. So you're dealing with different things along the way. So Dean Stein is just going to kind of break some of those things down. We also have a very special guest here today as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to utilize the Q&A chat box. Once again, if you have any questions, please feel free to utilize the Q&A chat box. Please know that this session will be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel within 24 hours. But without further ado, I'll turn it over to our Dean of Students.
Great. Good afternoon. Talking to you from my office at Georgia Tech on a beautiful sunny day here. And I want to welcome all of you. And as Tyler said, I have a special guest with me today. Probably about an hour ago, Rohan was just sworn in as our new undergraduate student body president. And so this is an exciting time for him as he begins his presidency over the next academic year. His vice president was also sworn in, but she is at GT Lorraine currently, Grace Swift. And they will be working with their exec board and with the other members of SGA all of next year. So I'm going to spend a few minutes talking to Rohan. I have some questions, and then he has to run off to another meeting, and I'll go through some of the things that Tyler introduced at the beginning. So why don't we start, Rohan, by you introducing yourself, say a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your major, things you've been involved with at Tech.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that introduction, Dean Stein and Tyler as well. Hi, everyone. So my name is Ron Sahani, he, him pronouns. Like Dean Stein mentioned, I serve as the new undergraduate student body president here at Georgia Tech. I'm originally from Johns Creek, Georgia, so not too far from our Atlanta campus. I'm currently a fourth-year aerospace engineering major, and I'm also a transfer student. So I transferred here in fall of 2019 from Purdue and have been kind of loving tech ever since then. And I think that was all in my introduction. Is there anything else, Dean Stein, you want me to mention?
So at this point, what I'm going to ask is if you could, talk to us. I'm going to ask you the question that many new presidents are asked, and that is, what do you hope to accomplish in your first 100 days? Which is basically the equivalent of one semester. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a good question. So I guess I'll give a little bit of brief background into my career in SGA. So I served as the transfer representative in the House, and then this year served as the Vice President of Academic Affairs on the Executive Cabinet. So a lot of my experience comes from the academic side, and I think that's where my priorities and Grace's priorities also lie in as well. I know the conversation regarding mental health has been, increasing on campus. So trying to understand where we can plug in mental health advocacy and mental health education into the academic experience to make sure that students are taking care of themselves both inside and outside the classroom and using kind of the classroom experience as a preventative measure rather than kind of like a reactive space. Aside from that, we want to really prioritize working with student organizations. Across campus, there's over 500 student organizations that Georgia Tech has, and really working with them to making sure that they can have easy access to funding and making sure that their events are kind of advertised at a very public level so that all students at Tech can kind of enjoy the various niches of campus.
Great. And, Georgia Tech is a very busy place, and it's a very academically focused place. But as a student, if you could maybe highlight during your time here, talk to some of the things that you did that were enjoyable, fun, and kind of offset that academic pressure and focus.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think so. Being a transfer student, that becomes increasingly important. A lot of transfer students are focused on the academic experience, and as you mentioned, that's super important. But it is good to take that time off, to take a break from school, take a break from your studies. So the thing that I found my community in was the student organizations, things like SGA, the Student Government Association. There's various teams within the AE department, competitive engineering teams that I've kind of been tangentially related to, and things like that, where finding things outside of, for me, honestly, not doing aerospace things outside the classroom is what I had the most kind of fun doing, whether that was, going to the Burger Bowl and just throwing a Frisbee, going to the CRC, working out, but really just kind of finding groups on campus that, align with my passions has been the best way to kind of de-stress from the academic experience.
And in light of the fact that we're talking to families and parents, I guess what I'm going to ask is, if you could maybe speak to the relationship that you've had with your parents over time since you left for college, and maybe how it's changed, if it has, over the years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When I first transitioned to college, it was definitely a very different relationship than it is now. I think over time, having kind of lived away from home for a couple of years now, I truly enjoy the experiences and kind of conversations I get to have with my parents. They kind of now serve as more, I guess in a way, more friends. So I consider my mom and dad to be closer friends rather than kind of parents, in like a weird, I guess, dynamic. But they really serve as a place, where if I ever have any questions or any concerns, or I just need to talk about something, they've always been that space, and I really appreciate that. So I think in a way our relationship has matured, and they've really served as a kind of a pillar or a platform to kind of lean on, or to jump off of for whatever kind of endeavors I've been taking in college.
Great. I do want to say, if any of you have a question that you would like to ask Rohan, put it into the chat, and Lacey can let us know. But my next question is, as you think about your future, what career path are you heading, and how has Georgia Tech prepared you for that?
Yeah, no, so in terms of the career path, obviously I'm an aerospace engineering major, so I'm kind of right now debating whether I wanted to go into the aircraft side or the space side. And I think the Georgia Tech Career Center has been a kind of great resource to really understanding, what all options are out there. Georgia Tech alumni are almost everywhere in all facets of the world, and kind of having the ability to be connected with them, to ask them questions has really helped me. Just talking with some of the career advisors within the Career Center has really kind of helped me narrow down what my true passions and where my true interests lie. And I would strongly recommend to, I guess, all the parents on the conversations to encourage your students to reach out to the Career Center. The Career Center has this platform called Career Buzz, which has a whole bunch of listings of internships, co-ops, and other jobs that are available specifically to Georgia Tech students. And I would highly encourage leveraging that resource, because that is a phenomenal resource that I know me and including and a whole bunch of other students have gotten internships and other experiences from there as well.
Great. So I know over the past academic year, you've worked very closely on the academic side of the house on different committees and with different academic administrators and faculty. Can you speak to, and giving some thoughts to families about how students can begin to build relationships and connections to their faculty?
Yeah, I think the best way to develop relationships organically with faculty and even administration is honestly just reaching out to them and setting up time to chat for a couple minutes, particularly for your student's professor, attending office hours, asking questions during class, or, making a intentional effort to get to know them, I think really helps to develop that organic relationship. For me specifically, I will often just go to professor's office hours, and even if I don't necessarily have a question about a homework or about an assignment, I'll often just ask them kind of about what their academic experiences looked like, what their professional experiences looked like, and just ask them for advice on professional kind of career paths. And the faculty at Georgia Tech are really really good experts in their field, and really know everything and are super well connected outside of Georgia Tech. So really leaning on them as a resource and kind of as a guide and a mentor to where you should go, I think, is really amazing. Both my parents are not aerospace engineers, and no one in my family has that aerospace background. So it's really nice to have, good faculty relationships. And a lot of them just started by sending them a quick email, be like, hey, my name is Ron Sahani. I'm a fourth year in the aerospace engineering program. I took your class maybe last semester, or I will be taking your class in the future. Is it possible to set up some time just to chat? I just have a couple questions about your past experience. And I think kind of going from that perspective for me has allowed to develop some really good relationships within the AE department.
Very good. I think Tyler said we have a question. So Tyler, you want to ask the question?
Yeah, Rohan, we have a couple questions for you. Transfer students are an increasing population on campus. What advice might you give a transfer student and their parents about getting involved on campus and why it's so important too?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We actually literally just had a meeting about this last week. I'm trying to get transfer students more connected on campus. And I'll be honest, the transfer experience is difficult. You come in as a second or third year, at which point, a lot of social groups have formed. So I'd really encourage your student to be intentional and be really proactive about trying to make those relationships, trying to reach out to people. And it is a scary thing, you're kind of putting yourself out in the open a little bit, but honestly, you'll reap the benefits tenfold. I'd really encourage your student to find, clubs and organizations that they think are exciting, whether that's, more of academic engineering organizations if they're an engineer, or really just finding student organizations that are just fun. There's many sports teams. There's other teams that do more community service, volunteer, things like that. So really kind of encouraging a student to find the community through that lens, I think will be really beneficial. And to me, it's really important because it really adds a whole new dimension of kind of excitement and fun to your Georgia Tech career that otherwise, you would kind of miss out on if you don't find that community. Transfer students, like you mentioned, are an increasing part of the Georgia Tech community, and just kind of making sure that we uphold them and really celebrate their success, I think will also be a good way to incorporate them as part of our campus community.
Besides probably being elected today as president and sworn in, what has been your favorite experience at GT so far? One of your favorites?
That's a good question. I think honestly for me, a lot of people harp on our football program, but I think honestly just going to all the sporting events to me has been some of the most exciting and memorable events. Even though football may not be winning, but going to things like the women's volleyball games, the men's baseball games, now that we're in spring, some of the track and field activities that are going on, or even the tennis team. And just kind of seeing the community and everyone just so excited to be so proud to be at Georgia Tech, I think for me has been one of the most rewarding things, and is a way also as a transfer student that I feel kind of more a part of the Georgia Tech community in that way too.
Great. I actually have a quick question for you as well, just for the parents on the call. If their student wanted to get involved in SGA next academic year, what does that process look like?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So there are a ton of ways to get involved in SGA. On the executive side, which is the side that I'm a part of, applications for committee chairs. So under each of the VPs, there are committee chairs and committee member positions. On our SGA website, sga.gatech.edu, the student can find more information about what committees exist, what VP roles are there, kind of which VP they want to report to. And then also on our legislative side, so kind of being a parallel to our U.S. government, we have a legislative side called the Undergraduate House of Representatives, in which you have selected seats for each of the majors or each areas. For example, there's seats for international students, there's seats for transfer representatives, there's seats for each of the years along with the college and major. So if there's an open seat that kind of reflects your role on campus, I would highly encourage them to reach out to the Speaker of the House or even reach out to me. And we can definitely get them plugged in into the right space there.
Great. So Ron, I'm going to ask you two more questions and then we'll let you head over to your other meeting. But the one is a question that I'm always asked, and that's, what's your favorite tradition at Georgia Tech?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I guess this is maybe not a tradition per se. I guess it is a tradition. I honestly think the Rat Cap tradition is, to me, super exciting. I think it's a great way to introduce students to the Georgia Tech community. And unfortunately, as a transfer student, I didn't get to do that, but I was able to do it later on in my, Georgia Tech career. And to me, it was just super rewarding. And honestly, just kind of a fun way to be welcomed in the community.
Okay, great. And the last question is, of all the different spots and places on campus, do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I think Harrison Square to me is the most exciting spot on campus. It's a super central part of campus, obviously a very historic spot with the statue. And I think being so close to the Whistle as well, to me, just kind of feels like it feels like home in that way. You know, there's a nice green area, there's trees, you know, we're sitting right at the base of Tech Tower. To me, it really kind of encapsulate what it means to be a Georgia Tech student. And yeah, I think that to me, that's just the most favorite spot. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for taking time out of your busy day and spending a few minutes with us. I do appreciate it. And I will let you go off to your next meeting. So thanks, Rohan.
Sounds good, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank
Bye.
you for having me.
Okay. So for those that joined us a little bit late, that was Rohan Sahani. He is our new SGA president. He was just sworn in this morning at about a little after 11 a.m. So he's been in the role probably about a little over an hour now. He and his vice president, Grace Swift, were both sworn in this morning. They will now take the reins and they will be in that role through next spring semester. So it's the passing of the gavel for Student Government Association. So what I want to do now is just kind of always, as you recall in my other talks, that I like to just give you a snapshot of where we are, right, in the semester, just so everyone has a sense of that as to what your student is going through at this time. So we are in crunch time. We are in the final days of classes. Classes end next Tuesday, so we have the remaining days this week and Monday and Tuesday. So some classes will be finishing up for good this week, and then others will just bump into early next week. We then move into a reading period to kind of give students a chance to catch their breath and just to prepare for final exams. And then final exams will go from April 28th through May 5th, and then it's commencement weekend. Okay. Grades are available to students on May 10th. Grades are always due on the Monday after commencement, and then the first day of classes for summer term is May 16th. So what does this mean? It means that our students are stressed, they are focused, they are really trying to make it through and assessing the reality of their courses, their grades, their GPA. Okay, so it is a difficult, stressful time for students as they try to wrap things up, take last round of exams, which was probably more so last week, maybe some this week, and then move into final exams. So if you're having a hard time reaching them, it's understandable. They might just be too busy studying and working. If they sound tired, it's probably true. Many of them are just, burning the candle, trying to get things done and stuff. And if they sound worried, that could also be true because they're trying to just, figure out where they are in relation to things. I do want to let you know that there's tremendous support on campus to assist with students. If students begin to get too overwhelmed, if they have a meltdown, we have places and individuals that they can go to talk to and stuff. We are very aware of the kind of time of the term that we're in. The other thing I do want to say is that we try to do that at the end of the semester is offer some light kinds of experiences that they can opt into, even for a half hour, but something that's just offering them a chance to take a break, get a refreshment, something like that. So there's a whole series of things that are going on both on the academic side and the non-academic side that try to just, give students a chance to relax a little bit. Just understand really what's happening here. And those that will be returning will have a small break and then come back for first day of summer. Those that will do other things for the summer then we'll go off and then return in the fall. So that's kind of where we are. Everybody is in that kind of final stretch and making our way to the end. Okay. Next slide. I do want to let you know that the division, has been on the receiving end, like many other places, of the Great Resignation. And there have been a number of staff that have left us for other opportunities and other kinds of ways of working, particularly opportunities that allow them to work from home. Which many of our positions really do not allow that full time here. We're too student facing to really have people work from home. But we are working with staff now in allowing a day or two that they may work from home, and then others being on the campus and in their office and stuff. But we have a whole group of new professionals that have joined us, and we're very excited about that. These are the listings of those. As you can see, we've had 5 new mental health professionals, and we're not done, honestly, in hiring some of the positions. These are, on the mental health side, these are vacancies that we're trying to fill, but they're also new positions that we're adding in the mental health. Communications and marketing, we have 3 new people there. Stamps has 4 new medical professionals. Health promotion has 3 staff, 2 new staff members in disability services. We actually added a staff member to the roster, so we've increased the staff there. We've increased the staff in the LGBTQIA Resource Center by adding 1 new coordinator. And then many support staff roles were filled in transportation, dining, and the new student center in preparation for the August 22 opening. So we continue to do searches, and we will through the summer, and so that we can be fully staffed and ready for when the next academic year begins. So next slide, please. So I do want to talk about something that's new, and it's a kind of evolution of where we are. So mental health continues and well-being continues to really be one of our priorities here. And a number of years ago, we started CARE, and we have the counseling center. So what we've decided to do now is to take CARE and counseling, who work very, very closely together. I do want to reassure you that we're one's on the first floor, the other's on the second floor near my office. And there is a lot of traffic back and forth between the 2 centers, and staff kind of consult back and forth between. But we are taking CARE and counseling and merging them and creating the new center, the Center for Mental Health Care and Resources. Okay, this is an exciting new endeavor for us. It will bring all of the staff in counseling care under 1 center staff. They will all be working for this new center. And we are hiring a new senior director to oversee the Center for Mental Health Care and Resources. So the director of care and the director of counseling will now report to the new senior director for the Center for Mental Health Care and Resources. Okay, staff will all be considered 1 roster, even though they might still be split and working in 2 settings, but they'll be 1. And that senior director will report to me in my role as AVP and Dean of Students. Okay, both staffs from both departments now are preparing for this, so they're meeting on a regular basis and talking about it and getting ready for when a new senior director arrives. Okay, this is really, we're very excited about this. It's the next evolution for us in terms of the kinds of innovation that we want to put in place when we work with students on mental health issues and stuff. So we'll say more about it, and we'll certainly introduce the new director when she or he is hired. We are doing a national search, so we're looking across the country and beyond for anyone that might be interested in this position. It is considered more of a clinical role, so they do have to have the clinical background, and also they will need to be able to get licensed in the state of Georgia as part of the role. So I'll stay tuned and I'll keep you informed as we move forward. So next slide. All right, well, I think that's what I had today. So I am happy to answer any questions that you might have at this time, and we'll clarify whatever needs to be clarified. So if anybody has any questions, let me know.
Will students have guaranteed housing all 4 years? How safe is it to go off campus and live?
Yes, okay, good questions. So, you know, what I would say is that students are not guaranteed housing all 4 years, okay? Students are guaranteed housing probably within the first 2 years, and then a percentage of students will continue to be able to live in housing third and potentially fourth year, but key to it would be to get things in on time when they're due, so that you are, you know, in the pool of students being considered for the housing. The first year class continues to increase and will be a bit larger in the fall. So more space has been absorbed by our first year students. However, what I want to say is there's so many new options for students within walking distance. I mean, some of them are closer to the campus than West Campus in terms of housing options. So even though they're not on the campus, there's one new building that's gone up right behind the Alumni Association. In fact, you would think it's a Georgia Tech building because it's so close, but it's not. A number of our students live there and stuff. So there are many options that the student would be able to walk to campus, would not need a car. The question of safety, I would say, is they, you know, depending on where the facilities are located that they'll be living, they are as safe there as they are on campus, using the right precaution and, you know, just doing things to reduce risk. Okay, I think that I'm, you know, I think I've said it. I've been here many years now, and the options to students as far as living on the campus and very near the campus, but not in tech housing, is much more than any time. So there are plenty of options for students.
Dean Stein, as our students begin to transition home for summer and kind of enjoy a mini vacation, what advice would you give to parents in terms of asking probing questions about just having them reflect on their semester and their year? What are the questions that parents can ask to kind of get the conversation going?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So, you know, let me start with what I wouldn't do. Okay. One, I wouldn't start questioning as soon as they walk in the door. Give them a chance to decompress and just to like take a breath and breathe. All right. Give them a chance to rest. I mean, if they've just gotten through finals, they might be really tired. You know, one mom said, like, he came home and I think he slept for almost 2 days and then he resurfaced. And I said, yeah, I understand that. I think they probably were so busy studying and wrapping things up that they just needed to rest. So you know, don't rush the questions. If they're going to be home for a while, you have plenty of time to eventually get to that conversation. I wouldn't do it on the first day or the first hour that they're home. The other thing is, don't start with grades. Please don't start with grades. Now, if they introduce it, that's different. But I would suggest that you not start by saying, how'd the semester go? What are your grades? All right. Start with just more generic questions of, you know, what did you like about this semester? Was this year different than the last year? If it's their first year, how did your first year of college go? Is what you thought it would be? You know, if they're entering that senior year, you can say, you know, how do you feel about entering your final year of Georgia Tech and stuff? So those are the kind of things that I would start with, the more kind of lighthearted, easier questions, and then you can make your way to the questions regarding grades and other things. But, you know, I think it is a transition, and I sat with a number of students last week and so far yesterday and today. And, you know, part of the concern is just, you know, maybe not doing as well as they had hoped, and then having to go home and share that information with their families, you know, and the pressure they feel that puts on them. So I'm just asking on behalf of them to just kind of go slow, okay? Ask it, but timing. It's not should I or shouldn't I, it's the timing of when to ask certain things and say certain things. So, yeah. Great question.
Yeah, no problem. Do you have any update when the Student Center will reopen?
Yes, so the update is that it's looking more and more finished as time goes on. It's been an amazing experience to watch it kind of crumble and then kind of be brought back up. It's looking really good. So staff will start moving and setting things up in the months of like late May and June. And they will start kind of getting everything prepared. The building itself will open in August, so that you know, they're ready. They'll probably have a soft launch opening just to get ready and get everything operational for when students return. So we're very excited about it. It's going to be a beautiful building, and I think it'll have a lot of nice touches that students will appreciate.
Great. Dean Stein, if a student, excuse me, if a student comes to their parent and says that, you know, I'm doing really poorly in my classes, just this semester hasn't been, you know, what I thought it would be, I've experienced some challenges, and their grades are not looking too good, what advice would you give to that parent in terms of how to handle that conversation? And also, does your office assist in anything in this matter in terms of helping students when they're kind of going off the rails?
Yeah. So, you know, again, a great question. So what I want to say is that, you know, there's a continuum of not doing well, right? And, you know, lots of students say I'm not doing well. You know, I sat with a young woman this morning in my office who was referred to me by a faculty member, and she said she was not doing well. And I said to her, you know, help me understand that, because on paper, it looks like you're doing fantastic. She has a 3.9 GPA, okay? And yet in her mind, she's not doing well, right? And so I needed to understand, you know, what that meant for her as to why she's not doing well. You know, and she said, it just takes so much out of me to maintain the grades that I earn and the success that I have, you know, and I'm exhausted by it, and it's a lot of pressure. And I said, you know, where is that pressure coming from? You know, and she looked and said, you know, I don't know. And I said, well, I mean, you know, do you feel the pressures coming from your family? No. Okay, do you feel the pressures coming from friends? No. She said, the pressure is coming from myself. I put a lot of pressure on myself. And so I'm the one that's, you know, putting this on me. You know, so a student like that, really it's about, you know, trying to get an understanding of what's going on. You know, what she's struggling with is just trying to figure out, is all of this work going to translate into something that I'm really going to enjoy? You see, I'm working really hard and I'm really putting in all this time and effort and stuff, but I'm not sure I even like my major anymore. And I had one internship and I really didn't like what I was doing, you know, and I'm supposed to do something this summer and I'm hoping it's going to be okay, but I'm not sure, right? She has another internship that she's going to do this summer and stuff. And so really she's in a position in terms of just trying to sort out, you know, what I want to do in the future. Am I in the right major? Where's my passion, and what do I see myself and doing? Her area of interest when we finally took some time to talk is sustainability. And her major is IE, industrial. And what she said is that she feels like she's caught in operations and logistics, but not really dealing with the area of sustainability. And so I suggested she do a few things. One, suggested she speak to some of the faculty in IE. Not today. She doesn't need to add one more thing on her plate, but eventually, and ask them about this area of sustainability. Okay, that's one thing. We just hired a new director of sustainability at Georgia Tech. I said, go have an informational conversation with her. Talk to her. Tell her what your major is. Tell her, what you really want to be doing in the future. Get some advice from her. Okay, when you get to that internship, I said, okay, you're in the internship for 1 month, and they're not fulfilling the promise that they made, because they promised you a number of things that you would be doing or areas that you would be working in and stuff. None of that's happening. What are you going to do? And she thought for a moment and said, nothing, I'll probably just stick it out. And I'm like, no. Okay, that's part of the issue here. She's just sticking it out, right? What can you do? Okay, and she said, I guess I can have a conversation with them and remind them that when I applied for this, it was shared with me that I can, that I'm going to be doing X, Y, and Z. I still have 2 months left in the internship. Is that going to happen? Plant the seed, kind of remind them, right? So that conversation is very different than a student who is, really failed a class or two, kind of the grades translated into C's, D's, and F. That's a very different conversation, right? That conversation is more about, okay, what happened here? Did you get the academic support that you needed? Were you involved in any tutoring along the way? Did you go into supplemental learning in some of these classes if it was offered? So that conversation is more about, challenging the student. Did they take advantage of the resources that exist on the campus? And if not, then for the future, that's what needs to happen. Okay, so that's a different conversation. The third conversation, I would say, is typical of, the student concluding that they may have a learning difficulty, but it really didn't present in high school because they were so smart, but here it is. That made me be in need, that student may be in need of a kind of assessment for disability services. And, and then putting in the right accommodations for students. So really, there is no one answer. It's really about what's going on with the student and where they fall on that continuum. And so that's what, as parents, that's what you're trying to sort out too, right? And a lot of times we go to the most obvious, if not simple. It's about, studying more. It's about studying better. And I would say that is true sometimes, but usually it's not. It's not about that. It's something bigger. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Yes, that was a great response. My CS major second year has not been able to secure an internship. Similar to the previous statement, seeing a little bit of him being burnt out. Should I worry about him not having an internship at this point?
Yeah. Should you worry about that? No, you should not worry about that. Okay, and especially if he's not worried about it. Okay, like don't take on something that he himself is not. However, if he really wants an internship, he needs to make his way over to Career Services and talk to them and get some advice. They'll introduce him to the database that exists over there with the possibility of some internships that might be available to him. And then he can try, and it's not too late. Okay, students here think, well, I didn't get it by now for the summer, it's too late. It's not too late. They can still work on this. Okay, but get to the right space, get to the right people. And most times they think it's within CS, and faculty there might be able to help, but it's more, I think, beneficial to go to the Career Center and have conversations. You heard what Rohan said, was that, you know, his work with the Career Center in terms of helping him launch some internships and stuff. And I think that's where students need to make their way.
Great, thank you so much. Parents and family members, please continue to ask your questions as we have Dean Stein for just a few more minutes. I guess, Dean Stein, any highlights or experiences that you would take away? I think you're in year 20 now that have stuck out to you this year.
Yeah, well, you know, look, I mean, this year was a rebuilding year in many respects. I mean, you know, to begin, I would say, to come out of the COVID fog that we were all living in and kind of reemerge as a community, to have our students back on campus and to, you know, be much more fully engaged than we have been over the last 2 years was really fun. It was exciting, you know, to have more students in class as opposed to on a screen. I mean, all of those things really brought a vibrancy to campus that we realized how much we missed over the last 2 years. And so, you know, I think that's like the biggest takeaway for this year, was just really the benefits of kind of coming out of that fog of COVID and being, again, a fully engaged community. There was an increase in the number of student activities that were happening, different events on campus. Student organizations were much more functional this year. So it was an all-around much better year. And we're hoping it's just going to continue to build in that direction for students. I do want to say, though, there are some students who've gotten very used to the convenience of virtual learning and not having to get up and shower and get to class and, you know, leave their bed and leave their residence hall. So there is a bit of a struggle here in terms of some students who just, you know, prefer it because it was just much less work for them and stuff. But, you know, the majority, I think, are students who really wanted to be back in class with other students and stuff. So there will be takeaways, though, from this whole time that we will hold on to. I think I've said this before. We will hold on to kind of virtual meetings and, say, virtual therapy appointments and stuff, but it will be at the preference of the student. The student will be offered either you can come in or you can do it virtually and have the student decide. And so that's even true in the dean's office in terms of our appointments. I prefer to meet with students face-to-face, and so that my admin will always offer that first. The student says, I really would like it virtually, then we, you know, will offer that to the student. You know, so there are a number of students who still want to just stay in that kind of virtual world. So, yep.
If a student moves back home for the summer out of state or perhaps to some city in Georgia, can they still access the mental health resources on campus? Or do they have to be enrolled?
They have to be enrolled. Yeah, you have to be enrolled to access our services on campus. So if they're not enrolled, they cannot, okay? They would need to work with a therapist in the home environment of where they are, the community in which they live or working. So.
My first year is kind of struggling with isolation. And making friends. Hasn't made any yet. He's doing well academically, but struggling emotionally. Refuses to turn to mental health services. Any suggestion?
Yeah. Well, you know, look, I mean, I've heard this a lot this academic year, and what I'll say is that, you know, if he is okay, if he's not really depressed or anything like that, then it may not be mental health services that he needs. Okay, we don't always want to default to mental health services. What he really needs is to kind of sit down with someone who can talk about ways that he can get engaged in the community and different opportunities that exist for him And that could be somebody in the Center for Student Engagement. It could be somebody in the dean's office. It's not always mental health, and we don't always want to cast it that way, because that might be the resistance that the student has, is that, I don't want this to be a mental health issue. It's more about, I want to make friends, I want to make connections, I want to figure out how to get involved. There are so many different ways that students can do that and get involved. And there are so many of us on the campus here that can have that conversation with students and kind of pave the way for them. Now, if the student is struggling with the isolation and it's translating into, more on the mental health side of, depression, and, the student is emotionally upset and stuff, then, we can address that too. Okay, but if they go through care for an assessment, part of it would be to discuss what's going on and why they're feeling the way they are. They would be doing something similar to what I just was saying. They would be talking about the different people in the different offices on campus where a student can go and figure out how to get engaged. Okay, so it does trouble me and makes me, I want to say, sad to hear that a student could be here the whole academic year and feel like they really haven't connected to anybody. That is difficult to hear, and I do feel for that student if they leave the first year of college feeling like they really haven't made connections to anybody. Okay, so yeah, I'm happy to talk to him. If you want to reach me offline and let me know who your son is, I'm happy to have that conversation.
Great, thank you so much, Dean Stein. I believe that's all the questions that we have. Just thank you again for just kind of taking time out your schedule throughout this whole entire academic year. Just kind of checking in with the parents and families. We know they really enjoy it. It's very unique. It's one of the things that COVID has brought us. It's brought it closer to you. In a virtual format. So we really appreciate that. And any lasting remarks that you have, you can go ahead and say those now.
Yeah, well, I just want to thank all of you who diligently showed up with some of these or have watched them, even if you weren't able to make it on the day. It's been a fun experience for me. And again, this is like a takeaway. We think these are very valuable and we're going to continue to do them and stuff. So it's good to hear your questions. It gives me insight into what's going on and what are the concerns. And it's good for us to have a channel where we can just talk and give you some kind of understanding of what's playing out at Georgia Tech and what's really playing out in terms of your student's life at any given point in the academic year. So thank you. I wish you all well. Enjoy the summer, and hopefully for those not graduating, we'll see you next year.
All right. Thank you so much, and go Jackets, everybody.